going on, Secondhand Talent family? It's your boy Steiner here, as always, with another episode of Secondhand Talent. Tune in next week. We've got an incredible interview with Ellis Goddard, the executive director of Mockingbird Foundation. And today we are here the day before his birthday with Jesse Cryderman, the president and founder of Inside Straight Productions and Wintercamp Festival, as well as the associate producer at Great Eye Films. Jesse, happy early birthday, and thanks for being part of the show, my dude.
Absolutely.
Happy to have you here.
Happy to be here.
So the first question we ask everybody on the show: had you never heard the term before? What does secondhand talent mean to you?
So I had not heard that term till you and I talked about it. Although I've been working deeply with secondhand talent for over a decade. But it makes absolute sense, right? This is all the people that help make all the wonderful art productions, video, everything that we do come to life, right? And phenomenal artists that are behind the scenes making the scenes. So
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I like that. Behind the scenes, making the scenes.
Yeah.
It's accurate.
It's pretty, yeah. So I hadn't heard it before you, and I love it. I love the idea. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, coming from you, because, in addition to, the wide array of, things that I listed that you do in general, as far as secondhand talent goes, which we're about to get into, you've also got plenty of experience as firsthand talent, if I may say so myself. I mean, you've got groups like AfroZep, Bifunkal, that you've been a part of, and which I've had the pleasure to see play.
Yeah.
Enjoyable as fuck. And it always is impressive to me when people are so, I want to say so involved as secondhand talent, but yet easily as involved as they are as firsthand talent. And you're definitely in that space. And I'm curious, first of all, taking a big step back, did you start with being in management and production or music, or what kind of brought you into this sphere to begin with?
Good question. So I started on the performance side of things. At one point, so really going back, all of us, I'm one of four, oldest of four.
Shout out being the oldest.
About to be really the oldest of four tomorrow. So I'll be another year older.
I'll take another step.
Take another step. Yeah. So we all started out, we had to play piano, and then we could leave that after 2 years if we wanted to. I went from piano to trumpet, and that lasted through about high school. Got to college. Trumpet is not the instrument to pull out at a backyard bonfire party, right? I got way heavy into guitar, like extremely heavy into that, and then that was I taught and played guitar for professionally for a good decade. But after like the financial crisis and a bunch of changes in the industry and sort of life changes, a lot of the people that I worked closely with, and the events that I was a part of, and the scene that we were a part of, it just, you start seeing all the same faces, and it starts saying, like for instance, Michael from Great Eye Films worked with us at Wintercamp. Wintercamp wouldn't have happened had I not been a performer myself, because that's how I met all of these bands and understood our mutual problem that there's not a lot of programming in the wintertime, especially February, March. There's not a lot of shows. So I was like, let's make a show happen. And so that all was sort of an outgrowth of our performance history. My dad's a photographer, so I had some background in that space. And then so how do I explain it? So a lot of the things that we were already doing for our bands naturally translated into like opportunities when we weren't playing. And we can only play so many times in our own city before people don't want to hear us,
right? And
we can only tour so often on like meager amounts of money.
I mean, and only so many opportunities will present themselves, so you have to take some hand in creating opportunities.
That's a really good way of saying it, right? So it was, how do we create opportunities? Not only for the first step was creating opportunities for ourselves, so that would be at the same time. So I'll just share how I got into AV. How about that?
Perfect.
I was supporting another band, and we'd worked at a venue, and the venue wanted to open their upstairs and start hosting bands. They didn't have a sound system. I had a professional account at Guitar Center. I bought the sound system for that venue on like 12 months credit situation, and then
so you straight up went in and were just like,
and then I rented it to the venue, so they basically paid for it in that year, but it was still mine. But that was the first time I had installed, and I was working at the time with Hot House Presents, which used to, David Chavez was the program director. He works for DCase now, so he does a lot of programming for the city of Chicago. So we did that, and that was my first sort of run of doing like AV beyond just 2 poles and 2 speakers and that kind of stuff. And we figured out how to pull that off. Then all you start to learn all the parts of what an engineer needs to know, what kind of, so someone's coming in from Italy, for instance, to perform, what do they need to know about the system? Meaning I need to know that stuff.
Right, because you need to be able to educate them
exactly
about whatever's going on.
Exactly. Like, okay, this is what you're walking to. And this is back before we had the X32s and the Midas Airs and all that kind of stuff where you can just use like a tablet and control it. And this is back when all of your EQ strips were like actual rack mount units with 32,
some of my just experience being Secondhand Talent was running sound for a play.
Yeah, there you go.
And before we had any of those more advanced patch systems, like every line is taped out and like signed out, and it's a lot of knowledge.
It's a lot of knowledge, and even for today, it still impacts like your understanding of signal flow. So even if you're doing, still is the same sort of inputs and outputs, whether it's in digital or analog. How you're running, where you're placing specific effects for specific channels in the channel flow. That doesn't really change whether it's digital or analog. So yeah, so an engineer, band's coming in from Italy, they need to know about how the system works. And then I need to know it well enough to tell them, but then I also need to be able to ascertain how good an AV engineer is, right? Let's say I'm going to be hiring a few people.
Sure.
If I don't know how the stuff works, they could actually just be like Subway sandwich artists, and I would have no idea.
And it really kind of just fake it till you make it. That puts you in a bad spot then, because once a bad product comes out, people are like, "Well, then this was your call," and you're like,
well, "Yeah." So I learned a lot about gear. I should back up. I just remembered something, Steiner. I got a whole other. So when I was in college at Western Michigan, I was looking for a night job. And Proco Sound is there, and they make the Rat pedal, the Rat distortion pedal. Any guitar players know that pedal, as well as like cables, not these ones, but a lot of cables and like custom interfaces for large tuning racks. We did stuff for the Allman Brothers while I was there. So at night in college, I actually made like guitar pedals, and I made cables and all types of stuff. And I think everybody that worked there at the time no longer works there. So I did squirrel away a lot of broken parts, and I at one point like had a lot of like fun stuff at home to play with.
I can say that now that I know nobody I know is there.
Yeah, now that I think the whole thing is fun. But that probably so that's where I started learning about actual audio gear and components and balanced and unbalanced line and impedance and all the kind of things that feed into AV. It's been I don't say no. I love learning. I love to understand how things work, whether it's like a computer. I'm kind of not content not knowing how to fix things that I touch. So I have this weird, I've burned so many hours like figuring out how things, I really like to do that. So
I resemble that remark. And when you talk about computers specifically, I was that kid in high school who was like, I can't just build a computer.
Right.
I need to know why when I put this in this way, it doesn't work.
Right.
But when I put it in the other way, I've got the greatest computing machine that's ever existed.
Exactly.
And that curiosity, I mean, when I talk about, briefly mentioned, running sound for a play, it wasn't random. It was a play that I had written. Right. I never wanted to be involved, but I also it's like, this is my baby. I kind of have to be involved in how the sausage is made
You want to
here
know what the
because I
sausage
need to
tastes
know
like.
it's exact.
Yeah.
I need to know that it's
Yeah.
going to come out the way I want it to.
Right.
Is that a lot of the motivation for
Totally.
being the secondhand talent for your own
I
projects?
think so. I think okay, yeah. So it's kind of three layers. It started out that way always because I was involved. It was somewhat something reflective of me as a human, as an artist. So wanting understanding so that that best represented what I believed in absolutely drove the initial interest in secondhand talent and being active in that world. As my career has grown and as the production company has grown, that's evolved into how can we do that for other bands, other performers, other artists, other directors, other writers? What do we need to have to be able to support their vision? So when they come and say, no, I want it to sound like Stevie Wonder off of this album or whatever, how do we do that? And if we don't know, who do we ask?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's an incredibly important point, is that, you know, it's something that's completely evolving, and
Yeah.
yet at the same time is relying, that last point, the who do you ask,
Right.
right? A huge theme of the show over the first two seasons has been, check out our interview with Adam Berta and Chris Quinn from the Goose Crew. We talk a lot about passing knowledge down from generation to generation, and kind of relying on our elder peers in the scene to be able to learn that stuff. Do you feel like you got that assistance when you were looking for it from your?
I've been really blessed because yes, to answer that, yes. I was able to work with a lot of elder statesmen of the secondhand talent world over the years, and it's continued to this day. So as sort of my network has broadened, the people I can reach out to. Here's a quick example. We just started doing work with Midtown Instrument Repair and Rental. So they do backline for large shows and festivals and stuff like that. Backline only, not the whole, so that's going to be instruments, amps, keyboards, all that stuff.
I was going to say, if you could explain, like,
yeah. So there's sort of like 3 or 4 different tiers of support. You have like staging crew, and that's going to have, usually people that are certified to do rigging and be able to so this is people on site, not people who design the actual stage.
It's on the ground, the people who are actually directing the
Right.
things that are happening in real time.
Which already, hopefully there's already a show book, right? And the show book, or whatever you want to call it, that's kind of common parlance. Someone's already spec'd out the venue. Someone has already determined how the touring platforms, the touring rigging is going to fit. They've already looked. Hopefully, this isn't a perfect
right. Ideally,
ideally, you already know, what power constraints. You already know your weight limits. You already know your load, your ceiling, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully, if everything works right, a truck shows up that has all your truss, all your staging. If you're building stage, all your platforms, all of your risers, whatever, and it's like big adult size, very dangerous Lego building that has to be done appropriately.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because it's like a erector set's better. But and then so there's going to be, the first level is going to be crew who can assemble that in a safe manner. Like literally putting it together is dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. You need riggers probably if they need to go up high to get,
right. It's putting it together, but it's also putting it together correctly.
And also, doing like spot checks with your visual checks. So everything hanging from truss and other rigging points usually has like fail-safe mechanisms, or it should. So there's like an extra little piece of cable that holds it in case it were to fall. Part of your job when you're unloading a truck, either unloading or even doing assembly, is visually inspecting, see if there's any like cracks in a weld or something like that, because it really, especially for outdoors where conditions change, wind, rain and stuff, that's when you see some of the tragedy kind of stuff happen, because one small fracture in a large load-bearing structure can be really bad.
Right. It reminds me of 2013 when the Northerly Island Fish Show got called because of rain. And we were upset, but at the same time, as someone who's been on that side of it, it's like, listen, we're talking about very real risks that are not, that are, subjected to the band, the fans, the crew. Like this is about more than music. This is about making sure that the people who deliver that product to us stay safe. I think a lot of people underestimate just how intensive mentally, physically, and how precarious those situations can really be.
It's and how dangerous it is to cut corners.
So yes, there's something worth doing. It's worth doing it right.
Yeah, I mean, everything from power. I've had a lot of thankfully, I've never been part of any real serious injuries, but I've been over the years seeing a lot of and had things happen that were harmful, even down to like stage power. Okay, so like if you have a guitar amp if there's a bad ground loop, and this is common, not as much these days, but like kind of like more divey club dates that have just maybe one circuit, which is not okay, running all the power for a stage, and it's not grounded properly, and you have an old guitar amp that only has like 2 prongs, the third ground prong, you can get a ground loop going where when you touch your lips to the mic.
I've heard of
I've had arc shocks come off, like an arc. Your whole like you can die that way. It's very dangerous. So the same thing can happen same things can happen under like wet conditions. And so power and like stable power, I could tell you 50 stories about even just this year, the problems that if you don't have stable powering your like big amplifiers that are sucking down a lot of juice and need a lot of amperage, especially now that we're using LED walls that suck a lot of juice. And lighting has just grown by leaps and bounds, so people are taking advantage of that. That also requires a lot more knowledge of how you actually lights move. So you have to have a cognizance of the distance and space they might move. You have to understand weight limitations on any truss that's not your own. You have to understand.
I remember.
Great.
In advance of our interview with Ellis Goddard, Mockingbird Foundation, we talk about Fish. When they play some of the older venues like Deer Creek or Alpine Valley, they don't necessarily have the full light rig set up because those structures just can't handle.
And you don't ever want to take
the power of CK5. And
completely true.
You don't and the last thing you could always add more, right? You can't take down, right? The last thing you want to do is run the risk even of any sort of like I will sacrifice the moving wall panels for the safety of everybody at the show. But a lot of people, again, don't necessarily make that connection, right?
So I got a couple stories that can kind of describe some of the problems that can happen, and then how they were solved, and in one case how it wasn't solved, but nobody got hurt, thankfully.
All right, let's go. Strap in, boys and girls.
So every venue is different. Every venue has different load restrictions, height. Maybe in your perfect world, everything you designed fits perfectly. In real world, it doesn't happen that way. That's the reason for the brown M&Ms, by the way. I don't know if anybody knows this, but prior to Van Halen adding the M&Ms to the rider, the brown M&Ms clause or whatever it was, it had nothing to do with being an egomaniac, which is also true.
Right?
It's not
to say he wasn't an egomaniac,
right? But they had a catastrophe that occurred at a university, and at that point, Van Halen was touring with this huge, very heavy rig, and they were not given the appropriate information about the load bearing of the floor of this, what was basically, I think, like a basketball court or something like that. Some sort of.
So basically, just to translate that real quick, they weren't given a correct understanding of the weight capacity of the floor that they were setting up.
So they set up. It creates it basically ruins the basketball court.
Oh
the headline was Van Halen causes $80,000 of damage to this university. That's not exactly correct. That's not because they partied, but they let the story run because I think, as David Lee Roth said, who am I to get in the way of a good rumor? Anyways, that happened. So and also they had similar problems as we talked about with like arcing on the mic and that.
Yeah.
So they put that little clause in their rider to make sure that they read. It's like if they missed that.
So it was a way to make sure that people were paying attention.
Correct. Yeah, because
wow.
That, they probably
missed a whole bunch of other much more important stuff. Wow.
Yeah. So
I did not know that.
Yeah. That's why it was in there. So flash forward, I was doing some work. A friend of mine, Elliot Schwartzman, was playing with a band called Imagine Dragons. He had previously been playing a bunch of he was the multi-instrumentalist for like Dwight Yoakam or something. He got pulled up to play keys for them. I had friends that wanted to see them. They had some younger kids. Long story short, we get there and I'm talking to the LD, that's the lighting director who's in charge of, and they had a bunch of automation for this tour. They were kind of getting to be a big band.
Right.
And automation can have it can be dangerous because if someone is supposed to be in a certain spot in the stage and they're at the wrong spot, something moving on the stage can hurt them, right? And or something that's theatrically supposed to come down.
The key thing about automation is that it happens automatically.
Yeah, right.
So whether you like it or not, this is happening. Yeah.
So they had issues with some of this. So they had a kind of a neat concept. It was these moving LED panels that would that kind of moved behind the band. And then in conjunction with that, the band members were all on risers that also moved. So they had to, the riser would have to move and the LED panel would have to move, or else somebody gets blasted by a big, huge LED panel. That wasn't work in rehearsals. It was working like 80% of the time, but it was a little bit off. So they canceled all automation.
I feel like 80% is not good enough.
That's not good enough.
It's
but
like
people make bets on much worse odds, sadly, in entertainment. They do, but in this case they did the right thing and they canceled all automation for that show and a few more, I guess, until they could be perfect. But that's the right way to do it, and that's, avoiding catastrophes is an important thing. Another issue that I didn't witness, but hopefully if we can get the clips I can get you this, but Michael Silberman, who I work with,
shout out Michael, by the way.
Shout out to Michael.
Great secondhand talent. We'll be having him on the show hopefully very soon.
Great Eye Films was filming, I believe it was at summer camp. I'm not gonna have the date correct. And Humphreys McGee was playing. Weather was not awesome. Anybody that's been to summer camp knows this is not uncommon for that type of right before they went on, and the stage was really deep, Humphreys decided they wanted to kind of move a little closer to the front of the stage. And so they moved Chris Meyer's drum set about 5 feet forward from where it would have been in the back. During their set, Michael's back there with handheld filming, and winds blew up and the rigging for the flown speakers, so flown, they're speakers that are hanging from truss, and they should have cables that are like, if they break that cable, at least also
like that's like why people go rock climbing and connect to each other, right? So you have something.
Had all the wrong things.
Oh god,
was not there. And this wind blew up, and sure enough, a huge speaker comes crashing down. You can see in the video Michael dodging out of the way just in time, and it falls squarely where on the stage plot Chris Myers was supposed to be playing drums. So he would have been seriously injured had they not made that odd decision to move up.
You know what? Like when they say trust your gut, like sometimes you just go with it. If you have an instinct to move your gear up 5 feet, for the love of God, move your gear up 5 feet. That is insane.
Yeah. And and another time we were seeing Trey Band at summer camp again, and there's really bad weather. And the problem isn't so much that there's several problems, but as soon as winds are blowing to the extent that flown speakers.
What are the major what are the major obviously high winds are a big issue, but
there's Well, I mean, lightning is obviously always a problem. So when that'll shut stuff down quickly.
Yeah.
Power irregularities from storm conditions is a big deal, because if you don't have it can damage equipment very quickly, even with appropriate like surge protection. So because you're not running like 500 watts, you're running like 50,000 and 200, a lot of power
in a lot of directions,
and it needs to be consistent when it reaches its end source, or else things just go haywire. Getting your power right is extremely important, and that's something that also a lot of times is overlooked. It's just like, oh, it's fine, it turned on.
Again, the importance of not cutting corners.
Do not do that. No, I mean, you just you're better off making a lesser.
Well, let me give the classic example,
Yeah,
if I may. When I was one of my very first production gigs, I was helping out as a stage manager on Peace Fest, like the very last year they did it at Cricket Hill.
Oh, yeah,
so
okay.
like Montrose Beach, like 2007 or 2008.
Before they started doing like Michigan.
Exactly. So I was helping out there, and the main stage manager comes up to me and goes, "Hey man, I kind of ran out of shit to say. Would you mind just like doing a couple of stand-up sets like in between bands?"
Yeah.
And I was fine with that. I was like, if anything, that is where you cut corners.
Right.
You like try to find an MC in the crew.
Yeah.
Like that's an acceptable, like if any, an acceptable corner to cut. Like to have made all your announcements too early. You don't cut corners with what holds the heavy equipment in place above people.
No.
Or anywhere.
No, and that's just it's there's you have crew that can be seriously injured, you have band members that can be injured, and obviously you have audience members. The other thing with wind is so there's like a rating, there's several issues, and there's people that know a lot more than I do about this, but from what I understand, when things start swinging, if there's enough wind to make a speaker array start moving, there's just usually that might say there's some guideline that's like, okay, we can go, if it's swinging 5 to 10 degrees, we're cool. If it's any more than that, we got to pull the plug. Because,
interesting.
Yeah, it's the same. And now the big one is LED panels. And the reason why is because they almost are like a sail. So most of the problems you see in rigging problems, they call them rigging disasters. There's a Facebook page dedicated to it. AV rigging disasters. If you want to know what not to do, go there. Those panels function like a big sail. So if they're not properly, if they're not properly mounted and weighted, or positioned in a weird way, they just take wind, and it's just bad situations.
So actually, real serious question on that. With the advent of these more advanced lighting systems and more advanced production, I mean, we're seeing the Sphere now in Vegas, awesome. And like multimedia adventures like that.
So sick, yeah.
Do you think we're going to start seeing a shift away from the elements into more indoor venues? And
I think what we're going to see is better design. I think a lot of the technical elements that allow us to show off all of our cool lights and stuff.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our technical elements they were always designed first to like show off. And then it's just like everything else. And then you get into like, oh wait, but ergonomically, let's try it this way. It's
so like first we reach this new vista of technology, and then we figure how to safely screw it in.
Absolutely right. So it's like build these cars with giant engines, and then over time, let's see how we can make this more efficient. Let's think about aerodynamics, all that kind of stuff.
Improve all the computer systems in the cars, and then realize you can't shift it into gear while the door's open, and then you get it stuck, and there's no way to. That's exactly.
So I think what'll happen is over time, because the technology for producing events has gotten it's awesome. It's gotten so good so quickly. But you still can't escape you can't escape physics. Science is going to win. If and it gets back to just some real basic stuff. It's the same as building the erector set in your bedroom. It can only hold so much weight. Every junction point can only flex so much before it's a problem. Wind can only be so strong before it's going to be a real problem against whatever weight, and ideally, whoever you have at the top of that team that kind of puts together the staging requirements and specifications knows exactly how far it can go in each direction, right? How much, like where is the load capacity, and then where do we sit, which should always be under.
And that's a real testament to longevity in the industry,
Totally,
and why
totally.
the people who are in and stay around for so long, is
Right.
because you want to get the person that's going to do it right.
That's right.
And you know, I mean, that means, you know, with the wave of new technology, like meeting that learning curve.
Absolutely. And there's that. So my advice to somebody looking to get into secondhand talent in any ways, we were talking about staging. There's so many other elements. We have lighting. We have
it takes a village to put on the show. There's a lot of people in the village.
I so appreciate. We just saw Penn and Teller. My son and I saw Penn and Teller at the Chicago Theater last Friday.
Oh, that's awesome.
And one of the they have been doing this a very long time. They understand that it's a village, and one of the most poignant and also just good human moves that they did at the end of the show. Penn took at least like 2 minutes to thank every person part of the production that makes it happen. He said, "You see us, the two of us up here, but there are so many people that make it happen." And he went and listed all the categories and thanked a bunch of people by name. And that's true. There's a lot.
That's real. And I mean, you know, one of the things that I do, you know, since I started this show, one of the things that's changed for me as a concert attendee is the first thing that I do is thank everybody that I see who's working there, because, you know, tip your bartenders, but thank them also, and thank your bouncers, and thank your ticket takers, and, you know, thank the people who are, you know, on the security teams watching over you, thank the gaffers, thank the stage managers, thank the production crew, because it's a combination of all of those efforts that make this show that you're about to see happen.
Yeah.
And you know, what's interesting is a lot of times the reaction that I'll get is confusion, because they're just not used to it. And then I explain to them a little bit about the show and like what it is, and by and large the reaction is like, there's so many stories to tell. From the other side of the stage.
That's kind of what happens in the downtime in between load in, setup, sound check, and then there's break, and before the real show. That's where you sit down and you all share your war stories.
Yeah.
Right. And if it's a touring crew, we just did the Fantasia and Raphael. Oh no, I'm forgetting the name. You can overdub it or something. Put a little like text box over my mouth.
We've had to make those corrections before. It's definitely doable.
Raheem is his name, and his last name is escaping me, and I feel terrible. We did backline support for those artists at Chicago Theater, and you asked me, I'm going to try to loop two things in here. You asked me, have I been able to take knowledge from like the older guard?
Yep.
In this case, for the backline for that artist, they had a lot of stuff. One of the things they wanted was a full size, a Hammond organ with 2 Leslie cabinets. Denny over at Midtown has 4 of them, but it's not just a plug and play old, it's not like what you do with the Gorg Triton or anything. There's a whole process to moving them. This is very important because they're fragile and old. There's a specific power conditioner we use for those so that they don't get blown out because they're sensitive. There's a way you have to turn them on. It's not just like turning on and you go play. You have to actually power it up because there's these rotors that spin inside. So I would not have been like, he gave me that education. And so now,
got it.
Yeah. Because frankly,
where would you get that education right now?
Well, it's not as common. Years and years and years ago, before I was ever involved, moving Hammond organs was a thing. Now it's very less frequent, and if it is, you probably are already a touring outfit with your own team. So yeah, that was great. And then I was going to loop it back into, and then passing that knowledge forward, right? So like where I can help and what I've learned through being part of various tiers in the secondhand talent space is just how many cool career opportunities there are there for people who want to be involved in music, the arts, production, theater, dance. There's a lot. And I work closely with Rogers Fine Arts. It's a CPS school here. There's also Shy Arts, which is another that's for older kids, high school. They have a full operational theater there where you can learn a lot of the parts of production. Why I'm getting to that is because as much as you sponsor and support your favorite artists, you can also get involved with helping that continue by supporting the younger people in the secondhand talent space who are learning that, right? So for instance, like if there's a fundraiser for it might not sound super cool at first, but this is what happens. You teach if you participate in a fundraiser for a new lighting board for a middle school, there's a bunch of kids who are going to learn how to bring that forward into the next generation.
Well, I'll bring it even one level closer in next week's episode with our interview with Ellis of the Mockingbird Foundation. What they do is they provide grants for music education in all 50 states. They've been doing it since the early 2000s. And I have friends who have benefited directly from various rounds of funding of theirs. And, that's something you could do is, support that charity, spread awareness for groups like Mockingbird that are bringing those opportunities to students and other areas that might not have the equipment, the capabilities, the know-how, the access to develop those programs themselves. And again, another reason why it's just such an important part of who we are as a show and a community.
The reality is that there are there are just so many opportunities. Just because you're not the best singer in choir doesn't mean you can't tour with the choir and be part of the whole show.
Well, Mike Layton at Apprenticing Luthier, he told us in his interviews, our second interview here on Secondhand Talent, season 1, episode 4, he wanted to make guitars because he loved playing it.
Right.
And he didn't think he would get to the level of where he wanted to be playing on stage.
Right.
So he said, fuck it, I can make the instrument that my favorite guitarist is going to play.
Right.
And it's that lateral thinking really that brings Secondhand Talent all together and makes it the unique, multifaceted niche that it is.
Yeah, I would tell this is I mentioned I have a son. He goes to Rogers Fine Arts. And he also he's done music himself. He recorded songs with Kason Traeger, actually, who produced his
shout out Kason of the Coop and Real and Bootleg Contraband.
But he's also really interested in art and graphic design. I've done some work with George Berlin Studios, and also that's with Inside Straight and Great Eye Films, where we've done 3D animation projection work, which is really cool. Wow. And it's coming along. I mean, it's like we're talking like projecting on buildings and it looks like dinosaurs are coming out at you and stuff. That's a huge burgeoning career path, actually, because there are not a lot of there's a lot of freelance work there. So there's a lot of there's a lot of that work goes to ad agencies and film companies, but beyond that, if you have the skill to like what some of the stuff that Spacely does,
absolutely,
that space is really creative, really fun. Might be considered, it's supplemental.
Hey, if you want to learn more about it, hit us up, secondhandtalent@gmail.com.
Do it.
Email us. We're happy to point you in the right direction to get you the resources that you need. It's what we do.
Yeah. So I was encouraging Kai. Hey, this is a solid. I don't know about playing guitar, how solid that career path is long term, but if you take your interest in sort of video gaming stuff and your interest in art and design, you put it together, and you're interested in music, you could be a very sought after projection artist to supplement bands.
I immediately think of like Chemical Brothers, like design and like that innovative stuff that's been happening for over a decade, and you're like, more people need to get
and artists really want to include that, but frankly, like there's a nice space there. There's a good space.
On that note, we got to wrap it up for this week. Again, happy birthday tomorrow, sir. Jesse Cryderman from Inside Straight Productions. I want to fucking reread this. Jesse Cryderman, Inside Straight Productions, Wintercamp Festival associate producer at Great Eye Films. I have a feeling that we're going to be seeing a lot more of you on the show. Happy to finally get you on.
And, happy to be here.
For Secondhand Talent, this is Steiner. We'll see y'all next week.
Thanks, guys. Nice.
That's it.
Perfect.
It's so easy.
Yeah, no, it is. It's funny. The minute you get going, you're right.